Most people assume intelligence is something you're born with. They look at IQ scores, academic degrees, or quick wit in conversation and believe that's the whole picture. But the Stoics thought differently. To them, true intelligence wasn't about storing facts or winning arguments. It was about seeing clearly, reasoning calmly, and acting wisely in the face of life's storms. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. If you rely only on natural talent, your mind will weaken just as a muscle does without use. But if you train it with discipline, the way the Stoics did, you can grow sharper every single day. So the real question is, are you willing to practice what they knew? Because once you do, you'll never see intelligence the same way again. When the Stoics spoke of intelligence, they were not talking about how quickly someone could solve a puzzle or how many books they had read. They were pointing to something deeper, something tied to the art of living. For Marcus Aurelius, intelligence was the ability to see life without distortion, to judge events fairly, and to act in accordance with reason rather than impulse. Seneca wrote that many people confuse knowledge with wisdom, but a cluttered library does not make a wise man. Intelligence, in the Stoic sense, was not about accumulation, but about clarity. It was the sharpening of judgment, so that when life demanded a choice, the mind could respond with steadiness instead of confusion. Epictetus, born a slave, reminded his students that the true test of intelligence was not in what you knew, but in how you used it to live well, to endure hardship, and to choose virtue over ease. If knowledge is like raw stone, then Stoic intelligence is the sculptor's hand, cutting away the unnecessary until only truth remains. This is why they placed intelligence at the center of philosophy, because without it, courage is blind, justice is partial, and self-control is hollow. And this is the kind of intelligence anyone can develop, no matter where they begin. Clear thinking was one of the most essential disciplines for the Stoics. They knew that emotions, biases, and unchecked desires could cloud the mind and make even the most intelligent person stumble. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to strip things down to their essence. A rich feast, he wrote, is simply the flesh of dead animals and crushed grapes. By seeing things as they truly are, free of illusion, the mind is sharpened to deal with reality instead of fantasy. This practice is not about cynicism, but about clarity. When you strip away exaggeration, you prevent yourself from being carried by impulses that weaken judgment. Imagine a person making a decision in anger. They may feel powerful, but their reasoning is blurred, and often they regret their choice later. Now imagine someone who pauses, names the situation plainly, and responds with calm. That pause is where true intelligence shows itself. Epictetus taught his students that nothing outside your mind can force you to believe an illusion unless you give your consent. To withhold consent until you see clearly, that is power. Today, this means questioning the images and words constantly thrown at us, from advertisements to headlines. Ask yourself, what is this, really? What am I seeing beyond the surface? By practicing this daily, you train the mind to separate truth from appearance. And once the fog lifts, your thoughts become like clear water, steady and reliable, no matter how turbulent the world around you becomes. The Stoics believed that comfort, when left unchecked, dulls the mind. To grow sharper, they practiced voluntary discomfort. Seneca often reminded himself of this by spending a few nights each month sleeping on the hard ground, eating coarse bread, and wearing rough clothing. He would ask himself, is this what I feared? By exposing himself to hardship, he trained his mind to see through fear and exaggeration. Intelligence is not built in ease, it is built in the ability to adapt when things are not easy. When you willingly step into discomfort, you strengthen the connection between thought and reality. Fear loses its grip because you've already met it on your own terms. Epictetus, who knew real suffering as a slave, taught that luxury and constant pleasure make the mind weak. A person who never practices hardship is caught off guard when life removes their comforts. But someone who chooses simplicity learns how little is truly needed, and that discovery clears the mind for deeper thought. In modern life, voluntary discomfort can mean fasting for a day, limiting technology, or taking cold showers. These small practices strip away dependency and build resilience. When the mind is no longer trapped by fear of discomfort, it becomes free to reason clearly, to learn faster, and to see what truly matters. Just as muscles grow when challenged, the Stoics knew the mind grows stronger when tested by chosen hardship. True intelligence does not shrink from discomfort, it is sharpened by it. For the Stoics, journaling was not a hobby, but a tool to shape the mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not as a book for others, but as private reminders to himself. Each line was a conversation with his own thoughts, a way to test them, refine them, and set them straight. By writing, he turned vague feelings into clear ideas and scattered thoughts into ordered principles. Seneca too advised his readers to review each day in the evening, asking what they had done well, what they had failed at, and what could be improved. This act of self-examination turns life into a school where each day is a lesson. When you journal, you create a mirror for the mind, one that reflects your true state without the distortions of pride or self-deception. Over time, this habit builds a deeper intelligence because it allows you to notice patterns, recognize errors, and trace the consequences of choices. In a world full of noise, writing slows the mind down and forces it to think deliberately. Even a single paragraph each night, written honestly, can have the effect of sharpening judgment and strengthening clarity. Journaling is not about making something beautiful or polished. It is about training the mind to face itself directly. The Stoics practiced it daily because they knew the mind grows stronger when it is examined. And intelligence, in their view, is nothing more than the constant pursuit of clearer, more honest understanding. The Stoics developed a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It was the habit of imagining difficulties before they happened. Instead of pretending life would always go smoothly, they deliberately pictured loss, failure, or hardship. At first, this may sound negative, even pessimistic, but the Stoics understood it as a way to free the mind from fear. Epictetus told his students that when they kissed their children goodnight, they should remember they were mortal. Not to grieve, but to remind themselves to love more deeply and to be prepared for the truth of life. Marcus Aurelius would begin his mornings by reminding himself that he would meet selfish, deceitful, and rude people that day. Because he had already pictured it, he was not surprised when it happened. Instead, he was calm. This practice builds intelligence because it removes shock. A mind that expects life to be perfect is easily thrown into confusion, but a mind that has rehearsed possible outcomes is steady, ready to act with reason no matter what happens. In modern life, this can mean visualizing how you would handle a job loss, a financial setback, or an argument with someone close to you. When the mind sees these possibilities in advance, it develops resilience and clearer judgment. Fear shrinks, preparation grows, and you gain the kind of intelligence that no sudden event can destroy. The Stoics saw negative visualization not as dwelling on doom, but as a shield, one that protected the mind from panic and sharpened its ability to think. The heart of Stoic practice lies in the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Epictetus described it with clarity. Our opinions, desires, and actions are within our power, while wealth, health, reputation, and even the behavior of others are not. Intelligence grows when the mind stops wasting its strength on what it cannot change. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with the weight of ruling an empire, reminded himself daily that external events were beyond him, but his judgments and responses remained his own. This way of thinking is not about passivity, but about focus. When you stop scattering your energy across the endless variables of life, you conserve it for what truly matters. Consider how much mental effort is wasted worrying about the past or trying to control the choices of others. That effort breeds confusion and frustration. But when you draw the line and say, "This belongs to me," that does not, the mind sharpens. You no longer chase every problem, but handle your share with reason. In practice, this might mean focusing on how you respond in a conflict rather than obsessing over another's behavior, or concentrating on your preparation rather than the outcome of an exam or job interview. Intelligence flourishes under this discipline because it trains the mind to separate illusion from reality. We become less like a ship tossed by every wave and more like a steady captain guiding it by what can be steered. The dichotomy of control is not only a path to peace, it is a framework for clear, rational intelligence. The Stoics valued silence and stillness as much as they valued reasoned speech. They knew that words once spoken cannot be taken back, and that much of human foolishness comes from speaking before thinking. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, often trained his students by urging them to listen more than they spoke, for only a quiet mind can observe the world clearly. Marcus Aurelius also practiced stillness, reminding himself that retreat was not always a place but a state of the soul, a moment of calm in the middle of chaos. Silence allows the mind to breathe, to sort truth from noise. In a world where constant chatter and distraction consume attention, the discipline of holding back, of waiting, becomes rare and powerful. When you remain silent, you give yourself space to notice what others miss. You hear tone, you read intent, you weigh meaning more carefully. This is how silence strengthens intelligence. It sharpens perception and reduces error. In daily life, this can mean pausing before responding to an argument, sitting in quiet reflection instead of filling every moment with sound, or observing your own thoughts before acting on them. Stillness is not emptiness, it is clarity. Just as muddy water clears when left undisturbed, the mind grows clearer when it learns to be still. The Stoics believed that wisdom speaks less and observes more. Intelligence is not in the flood of words, but in the depth of understanding that grows in silence. The Stoics had a remarkable way of looking at obstacles. Instead of seeing them as interruptions, they saw them as fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To him, every challenge was an invitation to think differently, to find another path, and to strengthen the mind through adaptation. When faced with war, political betrayal, and even plague, he did not crumble. Instead, he used those very difficulties to sharpen his understanding of leadership and resilience. Seneca, too, reminded himself that fire tests gold and adversity tests the wise. This mindset trains intelligence by forcing the mind to shift from complaint to creativity. When something blocks the easy route, the Stoic asks, "What can this teach me? How can I turn it into advantage?" In modern life, this might mean turning a job rejection into motivation to learn a new skill, or seeing a failure not as final, but as a lesson in strategy. Obstacles strip away illusions and show us what our reasoning is truly worth. They demand resourcefulness, and resourcefulness is a sign of intelligence. Imagine a river meeting a boulder. It does not stop, but finds another way around, over, or through. The Stoic mind works the same way. Instead of resisting reality, It uses reality as a tool to grow sharper. To them, every obstacle was not an end, but a beginning, an opening for the mind to discover strength it never knew it had. Memento mori, the reminder of mortality, was one of the Stoics' most powerful tools for sharpening the mind. To remember death was not to brood on darkness, but to bring life into clearer focus. Seneca wrote that we are always dying a little each day, and that the length of life is uncertain, so we must use time wisely. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that even emperors are forgotten quickly, their names fading into dust, so the only intelligent use of time is to live with virtue now. When the Stoics thought of death, they stripped away the illusions that make people waste their days chasing trivial things. Awareness of mortality frees the mind from distraction and brings urgency to what truly matters. Imagine how differently choices appear when you remember that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Petty arguments shrink, pleasures lose their grip, and the value of reason and virtue grows brighter. Memento mori sharpens intelligence by cutting through confusion. It asks, if life is short, what deserves your focus? What is worth learning, doing, and saying before the end? In modern life, this can mean living with the awareness that time wasted on vanity, gossip, or endless scrolling is time you cannot reclaim. The Stoics did not fear death. They used it as a guide. By keeping mortality close, they gained clarity, courage, and perspective. Intelligence, they knew, is not just the ability to think clearly, but to live wisely in the face of life's only certainty. The Stoics warned against chasing reputation because the opinions of others are unstable, changing with the wind. Epictetus said that if you base your worth on what people think, you give them control over your mind. True intelligence is measured not by applause, but by alignment with reason and virtue. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the crowd may cheer or condemn, but their judgment is neither truth nor falsehood. It is simply noise. Seneca observed that many live foolishly because they try to please everyone, and in doing so, they lose themselves. The Stoics knew that reputation can blind the mind, making decisions less about what is right and more about what is popular. To be intelligent in the Stoic sense is to ask, what is true? What is just? What is reasonable? Rather than, what will make me admired? This discipline frees the mind to think more clearly because it is no longer weighed down by the need for approval. In daily life, this might mean speaking honestly even when it costs you praise, or pursuing knowledge because it sharpens your judgment, not because it makes you look clever. Intelligence falters when it seeks an audience, but it flourishes when it seeks truth. Reputation fades quickly, but reason remains. By training the mind to value truth over applause, the Stoics developed a freedom that allowed their intelligence to grow sharper, steadier, and less corrupted by the shifting tides of opinion. For the Stoics, learning never ended. Marcus Aurelius filled his meditations with gratitude for his teachers, from philosophers to friends, each of whom taught him a lesson that shaped his mind. He understood that wisdom grows by drawing from many sources, but also by testing everything against reason. Epictetus urged his students not to swallow every idea they heard, but to examine it carefully, to keep what is true and discard what is false. Seneca read widely, from philosophy to poetry, but warned against becoming a collector of words instead of a user of wisdom. True intelligence is not measured by how much you know, but by how well you can apply knowledge to life. In a time when information is endless and constantly available, the Stoic reminder is vital. Do not confuse accumulation with understanding. A person who reads 10 books without reflection is less wise than someone who reflects deeply on one idea and lives by it. Continuous learning sharpens intelligence when it is paired with reflection and practice. This might mean reading philosophy, not just to admire its style, but to test its lessons in daily challenges, or learning from a mentor, not just to repeat their words, but to apply their habits. The Stoics show us that the mind grows like a flame. It needs fuel, but it also needs air, space to burn clearly. Lifelong learning provides the fuel, while reason provides the order. Together, they form the kind of intelligence that does not wither with age, but only grows stronger with time. The Stoics would look at our world today and see a mind constantly under attack. Noise, distractions, endless opinions, and a flood of information make it harder to think clearly. Seneca once complained that people wasted their lives rushing from one task to another, never stopping to live with purpose. How much more would he say this of us now, with screens in every pocket and voices demanding attention at every turn? The problem is not that we lack knowledge. Modern life provides more than any age before us. The problem is confusion. We consume without reflection. We scroll without end, and our thoughts become scattered fragments instead of ordered reasoning. Marcus Aurelius warned himself to avoid being pulled by the opinions of the masses, for the crowd often chases what is worthless while ignoring what is good. This challenge is sharper now than ever. Social media tempts us to measure ourselves by likes, news cycles provoke constant outrage, and advertisements flood the mind with endless desires. The danger is subtle but real. You may feel busy, even informed, yet your intelligence is weakened by the sheer weight of noise. To live wisely today requires the same discipline the Stoics practiced, choosing carefully what enters the mind, filtering distraction from truth, and returning often to silence and reflection. Without that discipline, we risk becoming people who know much but understand little. The modern challenge is not scarcity of knowledge, but scarcity of clarity, and the Stoic path offers the cure. To cultivate a Stoic mind today, we must take these ancient techniques and anchor them into daily practice. The principles are timeless, but their strength lies in repetition, not in theory. Begin with something simple, like journaling each evening. Write down what went well, what troubled you, and how you responded. Over time, patterns emerge and your reasoning sharpens. Practice negative visualization by imagining setbacks in advance, not to frighten yourself, but to rehearse your calm response. Choose small moments of voluntary discomfort. Walk instead of driving, fast from indulgence, or sit in silence with no distractions. These habits strip away dependency and free the mind. Apply the dichotomy of control whenever you feel overwhelmed. Ask yourself, is this within my power or not? If it is not, let it go. If it is, focus on your action with clarity. Throughout the day, pause for stillness, even if only for a minute. Breathe, clear the noise, and reset your thoughts. When obstacles come, as they always do, remind yourself, this is not the end, this is the way. These small practices create a rhythm that gradually transforms the mind. Intelligence grows not by occasional bursts of inspiration, but by steady training, just as a body grows strong through regular exercise. The challenge is not complexity, but consistency. The Stoics proved that greatness of mind is not hidden in rare secrets, but built from simple disciplines practiced daily. To think clearly, to live wisely, to remain steady in a noisy world, that is the Stoic path to true intelligence. At the heart of all these teachings lies the Stoic definition of true intelligence. It is not measured by quickness of thought, nor by how much one can memorize, nor by how impressive one appears to others. True intelligence is the ability to live in alignment with reason, to see reality clearly, and to act with wisdom no matter the circumstances. When Marcus Aurelius faced war, betrayal, and plague, his mind remained steady because he trained it to meet life with clarity. When Epictetus lived as a slave, his chains could not confine his reasoning, for he knew his freedom lay within his judgments. When Seneca counseled emperors and wrote on the brevity of life, he showed that knowledge without virtue was wasted, but knowledge shaped by reason became a guide for living well. Intelligence, then, is not a gift given at birth, but a discipline cultivated daily. It grows by practicing silence, reflecting in writing, preparing for hardship, and focusing only on what can be controlled. It grows when we stop chasing approval and begin chasing truth. The paradox of our age is that we are surrounded by knowledge yet starved of wisdom. The Stoics remind us that intelligence is not about having more, but about seeing more clearly. The climax of their teaching is this: you do not need to be born brilliant to live wisely. You need only the courage to train your mind, to question illusions, and to practice virtue each day. That is the path to lasting clarity. The Stoics taught that intelligence is not a matter of chance, but of choice. Each of the practices they left behind, clear thinking, voluntary discomfort, journaling, negative visualization, focusing on what we control, embracing silence, turning obstacles into opportunities, remembering mortality, choosing truth over reputation, and pursuing lifelong learning, are not distant ideals. They are disciplines anyone can live by today. They sharpen the mind because they remove confusion, strip away illusion, and bring us closer to reality. The modern world often confuses information with wisdom, but the Stoics remind us that true intelligence is not about knowing more. It is about living better. It is about seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be, and using reason as our guide in every decision. The challenge is simple. Which of these practices will you begin today? Even one, done consistently, has the power to transform how you think and how you live. If intelligence is a muscle, these are the exercises that strengthen it. The Stoics have given us the tools. What remains is the discipline to use them. Subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that strengthens your mind.